Okay, hello mga students. So, dito na tayo sa accepting an engagement, which is the step 1 of the audit process according to Salosagcol and Hermosilla. So, basically doon sa ating ladder, andito tayo sa accepting an engagement. But if you go back to ano no, to my presentation, yung in-insert ko coming from a different author, ito po 'yan, yung assessing client acceptance and retention decisions. Okay? Remember, if you recall, kaya ito nakalagay dito, recap chapter 2. 'Di ba, as part of the elements of a system of quality control, dito papasok sa number 4 yung acceptance and continuance of client relationship. Therefore, an important element of a firm's quality control policies and procedures is a system of deciding whether to accept or reject an audit engagement. Yes, sir. Accepting an engagement. Pero, accepting an engagement, sir, yung title natin, pero nakalagay dito, doon sa elements of a system of quality control, acceptance and continuance. At dito naman, sa different author na kinakapture ninyo, nakalagay dito, assessing client acceptance and retention decisions. So yes, if you observed it well. Nakuha po ninyo yung punto. When we are talking of client acceptance and continuance, pag client acceptance, ito yung mga first-time clients natin. Pag continuance, ito yung mga recurring client natin. Kliyente na natin sila last year or in the past few years, and then for this year, because audits are recurring in nature, so tayo ulit yung auditors nila at sila ulit yung ating kliyente. Kaya nagkakaroon tayo ng client continuance. Okay? Now, remember that, okay, coming from the chapter 2, under number 4, doon sa slide na yon, di ba sinasabi doon na the firm should establish policies and procedures for the acceptance and continuance of client relationship. And, okay, to provide it with reasonable undertake or continue relationships where it has considered the integrity of the client. Please take note na may mga highlight ako dito na colors. Number 2, it is competent to perform the engagement and it has the capabilities, time, and resources to do so. And number 3, can comply with ethical requirements. Now, dito, when accepting when continuing client relationships, in making that decision, the firm should consider, unang check, its competence. Okay? Ito yung part na ito, competent to perform the engagement. Second, its independence. Although dito, walang nabanggit about independence, but independence is an important factor in making that decision. And when we are talking of independence, ito yung wala tayong any financial interest or any relationship doon sa ating mga kliyente. Let's say sabihin natin na hindi ako yung may-ari ng audit client, hindi ako part ng board of director. So independent ako, walang magiging hadlang. Kasi pag ako ay part ng mga may-ari, ako ay isa sa mga board of directors, magkakaroon ito ng independence issue. Kasi familiar ako sa kliyente, may bias din ako doon, so maruruwin yung aking independence, and together with other related na mga ethical values such as yung mga objectivity, pagiging fair sa trabaho. Okay? Its ability to serve the client properly. Ito naman yung part na ito, has the capabilities, time, and resources to do so, and that the integrity of the client's management. Ito naman yung nandito. Okay? Of course, ang hindi dito na cover is yung can comply with ethical requirements, Naalala ninyo yon, yung ethical requirements natin. Ma-identify ba ninyo yon by now? Ano-ano yon? Bigyan ko kayo ng isa, dalawa. Integrity, objectivity. Ano pa yung mga susunod, May mga ilan pa yon, So if you want to comment, okay, You can comment down below. Ano ba yung requirements natin na yun? If you still recall. Now, pag-usapan natin yung competence. Actually, we will be taking up etong 4 na checklist na ito. So, let's talk first about competence. Pag sinabi natin competence, ano ba ito? Okay? Because one of the primary considerations especially bago tayo tumanggap ng audit engagement, no, is to determine whether yung auditor ay may necessary skills and competence to handle the engagement. Kaya nga 'di ba sa general standards natin, yung sa GAAS, pinakauna doon sa 10 GAAS is technical training and proficiency, 'di ba? Competence. How do we become competent, no? Ito, according sa Code of Ethics, ang mga accountants, we are not only talking about auditors but professional accountants. Ethics for our profession is not limited only to the auditors. It applies to all certified public accountants, no? Kaya nga Code of Ethics for the professional for the certified public accountants. They should not portray themselves as having expertise. Bawal maging mapagkunwari. Bawal yung nagkukunwari na magaling ka pero hindi naman pala. Okay? Competence is acquired through a combination of experience. Kung bago ka pa lang, fresh graduate ka, of course, ang competence mo is by carrying your education and passing the board exam. But as you go along, habang tumatagal ka na sa profession, you will experience the work, you will get to know what is being done in the actual life, in the actual practice, you will gain meaningful experience. Okay, yung training, ongoing kasi yan. Kaya nga, di ba, meron tayong mga tinatawag na CPD, Continuing Professional Development. Hindi nagtatapos yung pag-aaral natin pagka-graduate natin sa kolehiyo. Okay? If you are into public practice, mga auditors, there is a requirement para, especially if you are accredited, if you want accreditation, dapat 120 CPD units, and then it has to be renewed every 3 years. So, that is part of your competence, para maging up-to-date ka sa mga matters regarding your profession, hindi ka na pag-iiwanan. So, that is how we spell competence, through the education, through the training, through the experience. Ito, pagdating sa mga auditors, especially if mapasok ka sa mga Big Four, at iba pang mga kilalang mga auditing firms or mga accounting firms, may mga internal trainings yan. Learnings, mga electronic learnings, digital learnings. Dahil malalaking companies yan, they have invested enough resources to provide sufficient trainings para malaman ng mga bagong staff kung ano yung kinakailangan nilang gawin, ano yung kinakailangan nilang matutunan about the company, about the job that they will be doing, no? So, nagkakandak ito ng mga various trainings. Okay? So, yan po, when we talked of competence, we talked of education, training, and experience. Now, before accepting an engagement, the auditor should obtain a preliminary knowledge of the client's business and industry to determine whether the auditor has the degree of competence. Mayroong bagong kliyente? Will we accept? Tatanggapin ba natin yon? Dapat meron tayong preliminary knowledge. Understand ng client, of its business, its industry. Are we familiar with that? And usually, pag mga auditing firms, group of group of auditors, So, normally, they have the necessary experience, skills, trainings, education, proficiency para makatanggap ng mga work na yon. Matanggap yung mga kliyente na bago. Especially na there is a wide array, of industries that they already catered to. May mga, may mga specialization. Okay? Merong iba na ang specialization nila sa mga banking. Okay? Banking, financial institutions. Yung iba naman, mga manufacturing, construction. Nasa industry ng mga oil. Okay? At marami pa pong iba. So, That is how they assess that they are competent, because based on previous, we have already a lot of clients under our profile, our portfolio of clients, so we can provide the services that the clients need. Okay? Because that is required by the engagement, no? Or whether such competence can be obtained before completion of the audit. So, kung hindi man, let's say bago itong kliyente na ito, first time in our portfolio na magkaroon tayo ng mining for example, kapag obtain ng detailed or ng knowledge about the client, about its industry before the completion of the audit. Okay? So that's how we spell competence. Next, let's talk about independence. Okay? Essential po ang independence for the credibility. Kasi remember, public trust, no? Nakasalala yung confidence ng public sa atin. Pag sinira natin it is difficult to build trust, no? To build confidence. It will take how many years, no? A decade or so. Pero pag nasira yan, sira yung reputation mo, in 5 minutes, yari ka. Or in a few seconds, no? Kung meron kang ginawa, masisira yung pinaghirapan mo ng taon-taon. Okay? So, essential to the credibility of the auditor's report is the concept of independence. Bago tumanggap yung auditor ng audit engagement, dapat i-consider niya kung meron bang mga threats to the independence. Hindi lang ng isang auditor, kung hindi, yung audit team. Okay? Because usually, for big companies, big auditing firms, they are working as a team. Okay? Whether there are any threats, no, to independence and even objectivity. And if so, meron ba tayong mga safeguards para makombat yung threats natin sa independence? Okay? So, what else? Pangalawa, yung ability to serve the client properly naman. Hindi pala pangalawa, pangatlo. Kasi una, yung ating, yung una? Kaka-discuss lang natin, Pangalawa, independence. Pangatlo, ability to serve properly. Now, pagdating naman dito, sabi dito, basahin ko lang, closely related to competence naman ito, which is number 1, no? And it is the auditor's ability to serve the client properly. Sir, yun na din naman yung nakalagay dito. Okay? Oh, yes, I agree. An engagement should not be accepted if there are no enough qualified personnel to perform the audit. Kasi remember, we are not only providing service, but providing quality service. And part of our requirement before we accept the client is we have to assess if we will accept this client, can we serve them well? Do we have the resources? Are we able to serve them properly? Hindi yung tatanggap tayo ng trabaho, hindi naman natin kayang gampanan. Okay? So, sayang lang. An engagement should not be accepted if that is the case. Okay? Sabi sa PSA 220, and please let me know, okay, what is the title of PSA 220? I gave you the manual, no, sa mga actual students ko. Ang sabi doon, audit work should be assigned to personnel who have the appropriate capabilities, competence, and time to perform the audit in accordance with professional standards. Dapat mayroong sapat na direksyon, supervision, and review of work. Remember, are you familiar with the terms? Nabanggit natin ito sa mga previous video lectures natin, We defined direction, supervision, and even the review of work at all levels in order to provide reasonable assurance that the firm's quality standard is maintained. Okay? We want to maintain yung system of quality control. So, quality standard is very important to us. Now, eto, no? Check ko na kasi parang hindi sabay-sabay magkakahiwala yung animation. Epic fail. Sir, nag-animation ka pa, hindi naman pare-parehas. Ito, integrity of management. Let's talk about the fourth one. Sabi sa PSA 220, auditor should conduct a background investigation of the prospective client in order to minimize the likelihood of association with clients whose management lacks integrity. Ito yung nabanggit ko kanina sa isa kong previous lecture. Kung kanina nyo pa lang ito pinanood, no? The video lecture before this one. Diba, nabanggit ko doon, nagba-background checking yan, nag-iimbestiga. Hindi po ito NBI, hindi ito mga police. But as part of our requirement of our work, we have to conduct, background check sa ating prospective client. Pag sinabi nating prospective, potential client, hindi pa natin siya kliyente. Prospect pa lang natin ito. Okay? Because we want to know, meron ba silang integrity? Di ba, when we talk about integrity, marami sa inyo yung sumagot niyan, di ba, sa isa kong video lecture. But in simple terms, ang pinaka matatandaan ninyo ito, pag sinabi nating integrity is doing the right thing even if no one is looking. Okay? So we have to check yung ating prospective client para ma-minimize yung likelihood of association with clients whose management lacks integrity. Okay, kung kaninong company ka man, kung sino man yung auditing firm na nire-representa mo. Okay? You bring the name, the brand, the image of the company that you are representing, that you are working for, in which you are an auditor. Of course, as a system of quality standard, the firm, the accounting firm or the auditing firm wants to minimize the likelihood of any exposures, yung minimize the exposure to clients, to potential clients na may tinatago, walang integridad. Okay? Because matatamaan yung reputasyon na pinapangalagaan ng mga kumpanya na yon, ng mga auditing firms na yon. Okay? Matitaint, madudungisan yung kanilang pangalan at dahil kasi pag sinabi nating mga auditors, mga auditing firm, okay, yung public trust ay nakaad talaga doon, tawag nito, merong may nakaakibat na respeto doon sa mga pangalan na yon. For example, pag narinig ninyo, SGV, PwC, KPMG, Deloitte, Big Four yan, So may respeto ka agad kahit na hindi mo naman alam kung ano talaga, kung in reality okay ba talaga ito. Pero dahil familiar sa iyo yung mga pangalan na yon, because of the brand, because of the name of the client, of the company, of the firm that you are working for. So nagkakaroon ng mayroong na-maintain na respeto. Kaya nga yung public confidence, So what do we do if we are the auditor? How do we conduct a background check as to the integrity of management? Eto pwede tayo mag-conduct ng mga inquiries with prospective clients, banker, legal counsel, underwriter, at iba pa, to obtain information about the prospective client's reputation. Okay po ba ito? Halimbawa, bago mo tinanggap si Formally, wala bang mali? Kasi parang mali, Formally. So, syempre madudungisan yung reputasyon mo. You don't want to expose yourselves and to associate yourself with those with those companies. Okay? This is not tawag nito, ginagawa ko lang example ito. Okay, pangalawa, communicate with the predecessor auditor. It allows the incoming auditor to gather information about the client that will be helpful in deciding whether or not to accept the engagement. Hinighlight ko, kinulayan ko, communication with the predecessor auditor. Pag sinabi nating predecessor, ito yung auditor na pinalitan natin. Tayo yung successor, siya yung predecessor. Okay, so we have to communicate with the predecessor auditor. Bakit? Okay? para makagather tayo ng information about the client na makakatulong sa atin para mag-decide tatanggapin ba natin yung kliyente or hindi. Kasi baka mamaya, kaya nagpalit ng auditor kasi hindi maganda ang kanilang relationship because of some anomalies. Okay? Pero bago natin gawin yon, tandaan po ninyo ito. Before the incoming auditor contacts the predecessor auditor, the incoming or the successor auditor should obtain client's permission. Kinakailangan niyang sa kliyente, okay? Para i-contact yung predecessor auditor. Kasi as part of the code of ethics requirement, pinagbabawal kasi na yung auditor, yung predecessor auditor, mag-disclose ng mga information about the client without its approval. So hindi po pwedeng contact. Halimbawa, ako yung incoming auditor, ako yung papalit. Kinontak ko si Mr. X, which is the predecessor auditor. Hindi ko pwedeng gawin yon basta-basta. Kailangan magpaalam ako kay ABC Company. Kung si ABC Company yung audit client, no? ABC Company, I would like to request your approval for me to communicate with Mr. X. Okay, as part of our preliminary assessments, as part of our initial understanding. Okay? Pag nag-refuse yung client na yon, magtaka ka. Bakit ayaw? Okay? Kasi sabi dito, refusal of the prospective client's management to permit this will raise serious questions as to whether the engagement will be accepted. Bakit ayaw mo makipag-usap ako doon? May tinatago ka ba na hindi ko alam? Okay? So, that will be a ground, Limitation na po yan, So, parang, magdududa ka na. Bakit bawal, no? When allowed, pwede naman dapat. Kung wala ka namang tinatago. Okay? So, yun po, class. Next. What else? Excuse me. As part of this one, communicating with the predecessor auditor, tandaan po niyo ito. Epic fail talaga yung aking animation, hindi ko napansin. Once client permission is obtained, the incoming auditor should inquire into matters that may affect the decision to accept the engagement. For example, okay? Ulitin ko lang ha, Tagalogin ko. Kapag nakakuha na tayo ng approval sa kliyente na pwede na nating kontakin si predecessor auditor, pwede tayong inquire daw into matters such as, alamin natin yung reason bakit nagpalit ng auditor. Baka kasi may mga rotation requirements yan na every 5 years or every 10 years, kinakailangan magpalit ng auditor. So, that is because of a requirement. Okay? Or, merong disagreement between the auditor and the client. Hindi sila magkaintindihan. Kasi, sabi ni client, yung mga management representations niya, eto. Pero based on the findings of the predecessor auditor, it prohibits him or her to provide an unqualified opinion. So, modified, qualified, adverse, or baka disclaimer, So, merong disagreement. Kaya kailangan magpalit. O kaya naman, any facts that may have a bearing on the integrity of the prospective client's management. Kaya, hindi agad-agad tayo naniniwala na matapat yung kliyente na yon or hindi, So, dapat nandoon tayo sa middle ground. Fair dapat tayo. Hindi tayo nagpo-provide agad ng opinion na, ganito yan. Without support, to claim, without, support para ma-verify na eto nga talaga, tama nga yung aking understanding. Okay? The Code of Ethics requires the predecessor auditor to respond fully to the incoming auditor's inquiry and advise the incoming auditor if there are any professional reasons why the engagement should not be accepted. Especially, halimbawa, dito, ang reason kung bakit nagpalit ng auditor is merong disagreement. Hindi sila mag-agree. So, kung, na may approval sa client na kausapin si predecessor auditor. So, pwedeng tanungin, meron ba tayo, is there any reason, professional reason, bakit hindi namin tatanggapin yung kliyente na yon, yung dati mong kliyente? Okay, kung nabanggit niya well, depending on the reason, depending on the result of your inquiry of the meeting, then it will help you in determining whether or not to accept that engagement. Okay? Oh, kanina, acceptance ng clients. Ngayon naman, retention of existing clients. Ito yung second part, no? Continuance. Kasi yung una, client acceptance. Yung pangalawa, client continuance. So we want to retain our existing clients. The auditor's evaluation of clients is not a one-time consideration. Kasi nga, recurring yung mga audits. Pag sinabi nating recurring, uulit at uulit ito every year, no? Clients should be evaluated at least once a year. You see, we should evaluate the client at least once a year or upon occurrence of major events, such as changes in management, directors, ownership, nature of client's business, or other changes that may affect the scope of examination. So, at least once a year. Please take note of that. In general, conditions which would have caused an accounting firm to reject a prospective client may also result or lead to a decision of terminating an audit engagement. Okay, so kung merong mga negative conditions na which would cause us to believe, okay, na kinakailangan nating i-reject yung prospective client, okay, it may also result or lead to a decision of terminating an audit engagement unexisting kung similar yung kanilang conditions. Now, meron tayong tinatawag na engagement letter. Kasi once okay na yung result ng ating background checking, no? At na-check natin lahat yon, we are competent to perform this audit work, no? This audit job. Meron tayong capabilities and sufficient resources para magawa yon. We can be independent when doing this audit. The management has integrity based on our preliminary understanding, preliminary assessment. Now, we can conduct, we can prepare, we can draft an engagement letter. Pag sinabi natin na engagement letter, ito yung kontrata natin between us being the auditors and the client. Okay? Engagement letter is the contract, the service contract, no? Service agreement between the auditors and the client. And it set forth the following. Ano ba yung objective ng audit of the financial statement? And which is, of course, to express an opinion on the fairness of the financial statements, no? Pangalawa, management responsibility for the fair presentation of the FS. So, dapat nandiyan siya. The scope of the audit. Ano ba yung magiging scope? Kasi remember, we should identify what is the scope of the audit. Pag sinabi nating scope, ano yung mako-cover ng audit? Kasi beyond that scope, out-scope na. In-scope yung nasa loob, out-scope yung nasa labas. Hindi na natin sakop yung mga out of scope. Okay? Only within the scope. Forms of any reports or other communication that the auditor expects to issue. Facts that because of audit limitations, there is an unavoidable risk that material misstatements may remain undiscovered. O eto limitations. Tandaan ninyo, unavoidable risk that any misstatements may be undiscovered. Kasi remember, okay, what is the responsibility of the auditor? To design the audit in a way that we can provide reasonable assurance, no? Remember that it is the management responsibility. Okay, so there are always audit limitations. And client responsibility to allow the auditor to have an unrestricted access to whatever records, documentations, and other information requested in connection with the audit. So, dapat express na we allow, okay? As part of the procedures, we have to inspect records, documents. So dapat wala kaming restrictions doon. We can inspect any information that may be needed as part of our audit procedures in the conduct in connection with our audit. Okay? Now, we can also include the following items in the engagement letter. Yung billing arrangements. Paano ba yung billing? One-time payment, may down payment. Okay, ano yung breakdown? Expectations of receiving management representation letter. Yung tinatawag natin or namin sa audit na MRL. Okay, how is it different with the engagement letter? Ano ba yung MRL? We will learn it soon, ano? Arrangement concerning the involvement of others. Are we using the work of experts? Yung mga actuarials. Okay? Mga tax experts, other auditors, no? Internal auditors and other client personnel. And also, request for the client to confirm the terms of the engagement. Okay? So, yun po ano yung pwede pa nating i-consider. Now, bakit mahalaga yung engagement letter? Because it is in the interest of both the auditor and the client that we have to send the engagement letter in order to avoid misunderstandings. In any, kahit naman, di ba, sa mga kontrata ng trabaho, we have the job contracts, di ba? Dapat meron tayong kontrata na employment contract para maiwasan yung mga misunderstandings. Kasi minsan, ito yung naka-expressly, nakalagay, nakasulat sa kontrata, ito yung gagawin ko. Pero, biglang, iba na pala ang pinapagawa sa iyo. On the part of the, internal audit, pwede nila ito maging findings. Okay, when they are checking the, let's say, yung nag-audit sila ng HR. Okay? Chine-check nila yung mga 201 files. Pag sinabi kong 201 files, ito yung mga employee records. But based on our observation, ito lang yung mga job descriptions, ito dapat yung trabaho mo. Bakit may mga ginagawa ka na iba pa? Okay? So, pwede siyang ma-call yung attention. Now, ganun din yan. Balik lang tayo sa audit, no? Para maiwasan yung misunderstanding sa auditor at saka sa client, dapat nakalista doon sa kontrata. Okay? Yung mga agreements as to the audit. Okay, as to that engagement. And to document and confirm the auditor's acceptance of the appointment. So parang it also formalizes the acceptance by the auditor of the engagement, of the appointment by the client na sila nga ang auditor na hinire for that matter. Okay? So, pag recurring audits, no, the auditor, recurring paulit-ulit. Okay? The auditor does not normally send a new engagement letter every year. However, the following factors may cause the auditor to send a new engagement letter. Does not normally. Pero, kung itong mga factors na ito ay present, pwedeng mag-send ng bagong engagement letter. Una, any indication that the client misunderstands. Hindi naintindihan. No? Akala natin okay na. So, nag-perform na ng audit procedures, tapos biglang may angal yung kliyente. So, we have to send a new engagement letter, kung meron silang hindi maintindihan doon. Okay? Tapos may gustong ipa-clarify, hindi gawa na lang tayo ng engagement letter. Pinapakita mo sa iyo, pinapakita mo doon sa kliyente yung engagement letter, pero hindi pa rin sila mag-agree. Ayaw nila, no? So, hindi nila naintindihan pala yon. So, pwedeng gumawa ng bagong engagement letter. Especially, pwedeng, in terms of the scope, akala nila, initially, ang scope ng audit ay ganito. Yung pala hindi nila naintindihan na lahat pala, no? Akala nila limited lang. Any revised or special terms of the engagement. Okay, dati, tawag nito, meron lang tayong specific na trabaho na as part of the engagement. Pero ngayon, nagkaroon ng increase sa scope. So, merong revision or special terms of the engagement. A recent change of senior management, board of directors, or ownership. Kasi bagong bagong mga may-ari. So, maaring hindi nila alam before. So, pwede tayo mag-send ng bagong engagement letter. A significant change in the nature or size of the client's business. Biglang nag-boom. Okay? Dumoble yung laki. So, we need to send a new letter. Or engagement letter, tawag namin dyan, EL, no? legal requirements and other government agencies' pronouncements when necessary, if that happens, no? When the auditor decides not to send, kung hindi naman magpapadala ng bagong engagement letter, kinakailangan and it is appropriate that the auditor should remind the client of the original arrangements. Client, sir, ma'am, ito yung ating recurring audit po tayo, ano? I just want to remind you na kung ano yung nasa original contract natin, yun pa rin ang mariretain. Okay? Usually, halimbawa, eto no, gagamit lang ako ng example coming from my previous work experience. Not in the audit, but in the private. Usually, ang mga service agreements, minsan, it is renewed every 2 years, every 3 years. Okay? Unless explicit sa kontrata na the contract should be renewed annually. So, it has to be renewed. Pero may mga iba na hindi yun express. Nakalagay doon every 3 years or hindi nakalagay. So, either express or not express. So, kung hindi express at saka walang ginawang bagong engagement letter, ibig sabihin, binding pa rin yung original contract. Okay? So, yun class. Recurring audits. Now, how about audit of components? And what is components? Okay? Ito yung meron tayong mga parent-subsidiary relationships, no? When the auditor of a parent entity, for example, the San Miguel Group, okay, yung pinaka-parent entity, with the auditor of a parent entity is also the auditor of its subsidiary. So, yung auditor ng group, siya din yung auditor ng mga subsidiaries, yung iba't iba pa nitong mga companies, no? Branch or division, yun yung component, no? The auditor should consider the following factors in making a decision of whether to send a separate letter to the component. Who appoints the auditor of the component? Okay? Whether a separate audit report is to be issued on the component. Legal requirements. The extent of any work performed by the other auditor. The degree of ownership by parent. And lastly, the degree of independence of the component's management. Okay? So, yan naman yung mga factors in making a decision kung kinakailangan magpadala ng separate letter naman doon sa component. Okay? So, yan lang as an additional item to consider. So, hanggang dito lamang po muna tayo sa video lecture natin. Okay? Accepting an engagement. Class, I hope sana naintindihan nyo po ito. But if you need any clarification about our topic for today, please let me know and I'll be happy to accommodate you. Okay? Until the next video lectures to come, bye-bye.